Pix was initially created to deal with 2,000 transactions per second. Although that capacity was based on detailed predictions, we were surprised by a much faster adoption here in Brazil. In the first year, we had to grow our capacity to 4,000 transactions per second, and after that to 6,000 transactions per second. And without a high scalable solution, that would have been impossible to achieve.
My name is Alexandre Valerão. I'm a senior advisor at Brazilian Central Bank, and I am the IT manager responsible for Pix. Pix is the Brazilian fast payment system that is organized by Brazilian Central Bank.
My name is Rafael Melo. I'm a coordinator at Brazilian Central Bank, and I am the software development manager responsible for most Pix systems. So between 2018 and 2020, Brazilian Central Bank developed Pix, the Brazilian fast payment system. It was launched in November of 2020 and allows people to send and receive payments from one transaction account to another in few seconds, normally around 5 seconds, at any time, including non-business days. Pix has revolutionized the payment ecosystem in Brazil. Since the beginning, it had high adoption and enabled a lot of different business and use cases. Currently, we can see people paying with Pix in all possible situations. Small and high value payments, people paying in physical business, people paying online, payments in small business, payments in big merchants. 77% of Brazilian population have already used Pix. It is also important to mention that Pix played an important role in financial inclusion in Brazil. It is estimated that 71 million people in Brazil had made its first digital transfer using Pix. After almost 4 years, Pix continues to grow fast, reaching more than 224 million transactions on peak days and around 5 billion transactions in a single month. Pix is the most used digital payment method in Brazil nowadays, with more transactions than credit card, for example.
Pix allows you to transfer money from one account to another. So we are going to normally use an app from a mobile phone. So I'm going to pick up my cell phone, open an application, insert an identification number that could be a cell phone or a tax ID number, for example, that identify the person I'm going to transfer to, and I'm going to put the value, and I'm going to send the transaction. And that's going to happen in just a few seconds, normally 5 or 6 seconds. That's the way people use. When we started to conceive a fast payment solution in Brazil, we evaluated many different design options. Of course, you could create a classical digital service using probably a limited number of features, because in this case the features are going to be developed by Brazilian Central Bank. Or you could create a system using an open model, in this case a DPI. To decide that, we consider that one of our main goals with this system was bringing financial inclusion. And it seemed to us that it was easier to reach that using an open approach. In this case, the banks and payment institutions could participate and expand the ecosystem, creating new solutions. We believed that would foster competition in the payment market. So it was important to have an open model that could create an ecosystem able to evolve. And that evolution would happen in different dimensions. For example, that was going to bring new players, new use cases, new businesses to this ecosystem. Giving an example, today PIX has more than 800 participants. Banks, payment institutions, credit cooperatives, etc. Some of them are big institutions and some of them are small institutions. And many of them focus on the needs of specific sectors. So there are payment services for all the Brazilian population. With this approach, we believe that PIX helped to increase the share of Brazilian population with access to financial services. And that would be surely much more difficult using a closed model. The central bank had been studying the subject fast payments for some years when the project started in 2018. When we finally started the project, one of the first definitions was the governance structure. Although many of the decisions were centralized in the central bank, we considered we need to be in close contact with all the relevant stakeholders. That was essential to create an open model. And to address this point, we created the PIX Forum. PIX Forum was a group with all the involved players, not just the future PIX participants, that means banks, payment institutions, and so on, but also commercial automation companies, telecommunication companies, associations, bank associations, cybersecurity companies, and so on. All the groups interested in the future system. Each one of the important project decisions started with deep discussions inside this forum. We used it to discuss all the relevant aspects of the ecosystem, features, rules, standards, operation technology, security. This way we defined the most important aspects of the ecosystem: a basic business model, some important security guidelines, definitions about connectivity, and definitions about authentication methods. After that, we started to define the technical solutions that was going to be used in the central systems, that means in the systems provided by Brazilian Central Bank. The technical complexity in this kind of system is a big challenge. Of course, a public infrastructure needs to have a very high availability level and also a high security level. Besides that, of course, a payment infrastructure has to work 24/7. And that's in the essence of the payment cycle. In fact, the payments may occur at any time. And obviously, a fast payment system has to be fast. So there were a lot of important technical challenges. We also had to write the norms and manuals that regulate the PIX participants, banks, and payment institutions, and so on. Those manuals are related both to business and to technical aspects, covering, for example, PIX rules, connectivity, security standards, service level agreements, payment initiation methods, and so on. With all the technical definitions made, we started to create the definitive solution in October 2019. At the same time, we gave all the necessary definitions to allow the PIX participants to start the development of their solutions. So we were developing in parallel, so the Brazilian Central Bank and the PIX participants. We launched the product 1 year later in November 2020. It was also important to mention that concurrently, at the same time, we launched payment initiation standard that allowed the users to initiate a PIX scanning a QR code. This initiation process wasn't very used at first, but it was important to create the standard before system launching to avoid market fragmentation. That means many participants could create their own standards without interoperability concerns, for example. When you are designing PIX, we had some contacts with other jurisdictions to know a little about the international experience in fast payment systems. From a technical perspective, we talked a lot with the European guys from the European system, the TIPS. We talked with Mexico and Australia to establish a technical benchmarking, and that helped us a lot. It seems that all payment systems, fast payment systems in the world, they have more or less the same challenges. It's difficult to deal with this 24/7 operation. It's difficult to deal with a high level of transactions. The operation is extremely complex, and those contacts, they helped us a lot in the PIX design. Immediately after the launching of PIX, the most popular use case was the P2P settlement. In general, it was a person paying another person, or a person paying an informal business. That's something very common in Brazil. After that moment, we observed a relevant growth in other kinds of payments, like P2B and P2M, that means a person paying a business or a person paying a merchant. Those use cases, most of them include those started with QR codes. PIX QR codes are also very used in e-commerce platforms. Eventually, we start to see another kind of payments, that the monthly payment started using PIX. So, for example, we started to receive energy bills or telephone bills with QR codes printed on it. And so it became possible to pay, for example, an energy bill using PIX via QR code. We also have part of our governmental payments made by PIX in both sides, like the P2G, people paying government, and the G2P, the government paying people.
The first lesson that I would like to mention is that market participation is extremely important. Although we were immersed in the subject of fast payment here in the central bank, many very creative use cases came from market institutions. It was very helpful to keep frequent interactions with banks, payment institutions, credit cooperatives, payment initiators, merchants, and commercial automation companies through PIX Forum. Without the participation of them, it would be impossible to reach such innovation and adoption in PIX. Another key aspect is security and privacy by design. Security features were thought and implemented since the beginning of the PIX project. Thanks to that, we were able to build a very robust and secure, fast payment system, and that brings credibility. That's important because high adoption seems to strongly depend on the credibility. Since the beginning of the Pix life cycle in production, new use cases emerged, and therefore the needs of evolution in the system functionalities. We had to develop new functionalities, adapt existing functionalities, and that was only possible in a fast way thanks to the fact that the system was built to be adaptable and capable of evolving to meet the changing needs of the society. Another fundamental lesson is the importance of the scalability. Pix was initially created to deal with 2,000 transactions per second. Although that capacity was based on detailed predictions, we were surprised by a much faster adoption here in Brazil. In the first year, we had to grow our capacity to 4,000 transactions per second, and after that to 6,000 transactions per second. And without a high scalable solution, that would have been impossible to achieve. The last lesson we would like to bring here is the use of open technologies. In the architecture phase, we decided to prioritize the use of open technologies such as HTTPS. That strategy reduces the technological influence barriers to the participants, and thanks to that, Pix has today more than 800 participants in the Pix ecosystem, including small ones and really big ones, what is fundamental to reach all sectors of the Brazilian population. Pix is expanded in two different ways. First, we have evolutive agenda, and we are continuously expanding the Pix with new products. For example, since launching, we have created a feature for cash withdrawal with Pix. We included the possibility of scheduled payments, and we integrated Pix with the Brazilian Open Finance Initiative, allowing different forms of payments initiation. The second way Pix is expanded is through the action of all the participants of the Pix ecosystem that can use the infrastructure to enable new use cases or to improve their user experience in some businesses. And there's a lot more to come in the future, such as automatic payments, offline payments, and international payments. One of the most significant challenges in Pix is the need of a strong integration between the Brazilian Central Bank and the other stakeholders. And that was mitigated by the creation of the Pix Forum, as we mentioned before. We also have many relevant technical challenges. Dealing with a huge volume of transactions is particularly demanding, as well operating a 24-hour system. These technical challenges were extremely relevant during the development of the Pix and continue to be relevant during the operation in production. To deal with them, we did some proofs of concepts in the beginning of the project and designed a very robust architecture. Pix had high adoption since the beginning. With development, deal with this quickly and non-stop increase of transactions have been a huge challenge for us. To deal with this, we created a process to continuously access the capacity and to plan the evolutions necessary to the next level. We are always looking to the future and anticipating the capacities increases. Another critical aspect of any payment system is security, and to deal with it on the technical level, we created an isolated system working in a private network with all possible security layers. And on the business level, we created a subgroup of the Pix Forum dedicated to the security issues that allowed us to discuss fraud prevention with the market institutions. And in general, banks and payment institutions are in close connection with the frauded clients and can help defining the most important indicators to prevent the frauds.
In Pix case, Brazilian Central Bank take the leadership of the process, in fact, because it was like as we have explained, it was an ecosystem, and so it includes the central bank, but it also includes the banks, the payment institutions, credit cooperatives, and many kinds of participants. Those participants, they are regulated by Brazilian Central Bank, and Brazilian Central Bank basically take the leadership in that process, and our role was talking with everybody in this ecosystem, understand the different point of views, and to define the rules that's going to be applied to the ecosystem. And I think that worked in the creation of the system. When you compare the two different approaches, it seems that the DPI approach is able to create ecosystems that are going to evolve, that are going to create different services, that are going to bring new businesses to the system. And when you think about a digital service, a classical digital service or something like that, it seems that the development of new features and things like that is a little more centralized in specific institutions. So I believe that the DPI approach is like something alive, something that is able to create different things, and that is what we are trying to do with PIX. So we basically created many an infrastructure that can be used by the 800 PIX participants to create new things. I think an important message to a country that is planning to create a fast payment system is, first, it's very important to talk with all the relevant participants. That was something very important. It's a technological challenge, but it's also like a human challenge in the sense that you have to talk to understand all the players in the market. And there's another thing related to technology. There are a lot of technological challenges, and it's difficult to build the system, but it's very difficult to operate the system after the launching, because this 24/7 operation is something with a lot of complex aspects.
One key aspect here is that they should think about adaptability since the beginning. It's 100% sure that the DPI will be expanded and the use case will be there. So it's really important to think about adaptability since the beginning and build an adaptable system. Another key aspect is that the market participation is extremely important. Here in Brazil, we saw that the participation of the market institutions helped us to achieve such innovation and adoption in Brazil. And the last one is that the use of open technologies is extremely important. And I think we just were able to achieve high adoption here in Brazil because we used open technologies and an open approach, and we could have a lot of participants. The really small ones and the really big ones are participating in the PIX ecosystem today.
I think a relevant point to bring is that those kind of systems, they are able to transform, to make big changes in some markets. And that was something you could see in Brazil.
The DPIs can bring a lot of benefits to the population in general and can help the countries achieve their goals.